Twice every year, entire villages in Iran vanish overnight. Not through disaster, not even through war, but by choice. Families take apart their homes in a single morning, load them onto the backs of mules and camels, and walk into the mountains. By nightfall, the valley where they stood sits empty again. Only flattened grass and cold fire pits remain, proof that anyone was ever there at all.
This is one of the last great human migrations left on Earth. It happens here in the folds of the Zagros mountains, and it follows a rhythm far older than the villages themselves. The Zagros range cuts through the western spine of Iran like a great stone wall, running for over 1,000 miles from the Turkish border almost down to the Persian Gulf. Snow settles thick on its upper slopes for half the year. Sun bakes the lowlands for the other half. Nothing in between stays the same for long. And so nothing that lives here can afford to stay still either. High on a ridge, a wild goat picks its way across a cliff face so narrow it looks impossible. This is the Bezor goat, ancestor to nearly every domestic goat now living on the planet. Its hooves grip rock the way human hands grip a ladder. One slip means a fall of hundreds of feet. It does not slip. Above the goat, a shadow crosses the rock. A golden eagle, riding the thermal currents that rise off sun-warmed stone, watches the herd below with an eye sharper than any lens a camera crew could carry up here. It has flown these same slopes its whole life. It knows where the young goats stumble. And somewhere further down, hidden in a cave mouth or a thicket of oak scrub, a Persian leopard waits. It is the largest leopard on Earth, built heavier and more powerful than its African cousins, shaped by generations of hunting on unforgiving terrain. Fewer than 1,000 may remain across the whole of Iran. Picture a creature so rare that most people who live their entire lives in these mountains will never see one. Yet its paw prints turn up in the snow near the flocks. A quiet reminder that something is always watching. The people who share this landscape with the leopard and the eagle and the goat are the Koskai and the Baktiari, two of the oldest nomadic peoples in Iran. For thousands of years, they have not lived in one place, they have lived in two. In winter, their world is the Garmsir, the warm lowlands near the Khuzestan plains, where the air stays mild even when snow buries the peaks above. In summer, their world becomes the Sardsir, the cool highland pastures where grass grows lush just as the lowlands turn to dust. Between these two homes lies everything that makes this migration one of the hardest journeys any people still choose to make.
Spring arrives and the snow melt swells the rivers of the Zagros into roaring brown ice-cold torrents. The Karun River, the longest in Iran, becomes one of the great obstacles of the migration. Families reach its banks with everything they own. Flocks of sheep bleat and refuse to enter the current. Children are lifted onto the backs of animals that know this crossing better than any human ever could. Men inflate the skins of goats, tying them shut at the neck and legs until each one becomes a small, stubborn float. A person clings to one of these skins and kicks against a current strong enough to carry away a car. This is not tradition performed for a camera. This is how a family survives the only route home it has ever known. Watch closely and something remarkable becomes clear. The animals lead as often as the people do. Dogs bred over centuries for exactly this task pace along the edges of the herd, snapping at stragglers, driving nervous lambs back into line. These are not pets, they are working partners, as essential to the migration as the mules that carry the tents. Speaking of the tents, they too are a marvel of design, shaped entirely by necessity. Dry, the fibers swell tight enough to block wind and cold. Wet, they swell further and turn nearly waterproof. A tent that took a grandmother's hands weeks to weave will outlast the family that sleeps beneath it, passed down the way a house might be passed down elsewhere in the world. Inside these tents, life continues with a rhythm shaped by daylight rather than clocks. Women rise before the sun to milk the goats and sheep, turning that milk into yogurt and a dried, sun-hardened cheese called kashk that can survive weeks of travel without spoiling. Bread is baked on a simple metal dome over an open flame, the same method used here for longer than most nations have existed. And in quiet moments between chores, the women weave. Kilims and carpets, their patterns never written down, carried instead in memory and passed from mother to daughter across generations. Each rug tells a story of its region, its tribe, sometimes even the particular family that made it, woven entirely from wool sheared off animals grazing just outside the tent flap. The children of these communities grow up fluent in a language the rest of the world has mostly forgotten. One written not in words, but in weather and hoof prints and the position of the sun. A boy of 8 can read a change in the wind and know that rain is a day away. A girl of 10 can spot a lamb in trouble from 200 meters simply by the way it walks.
Move east, away from the green folds of the Zagros, and Iran shows a different face entirely. The land flattens. The color drains from it. Grass gives way to gravel, then to salt, then to nothing at all. This is the Dasht-e-Kavir, the Great Salt Desert, a basin so dry and so still that in places the ground cracks into shapes like the scales of some vast sleeping animal. Further southeast lies the Dasht-e-Lut, where satellite instruments have recorded some of the highest ground temperatures ever measured anywhere on the surface of the Earth. Stand here at midday, and the heat does not simply surround you, it presses down, thick enough to feel like a weight on the shoulders. Almost nothing survives in the deepest parts of these deserts. Yet at their fringes, where a handful of underground springs still reach the surface, life clings on with astonishing stubbornness. A jerboa, small enough to sit in a human palm, bounds across the sand on legs built like a kangaroo's, using its long tail purely for balance. It never needs to drink. Every drop of water it requires, it pulls from the seeds it eats. Here too, at the very edge of what a person can endure, small nomadic communities still graze camels rather than sheep, animals built for exactly this kind of punishment.
A camel can drink over 100 liters of water in one sitting and then walk for 2 weeks on almost none at all, its body converting stored fat into water more efficiently than any machine humans have built to survive the same conditions. Watching one cross a dune at dusk, its silhouette stretched long by the falling sun, it is easy to understand why so many desert cultures came to see the camel as something close to sacred. Turn north instead, toward the shores of the Caspian Sea, and Iran changes again so completely it becomes difficult to believe this is still the same country. Here, moisture rolling off the Caspian meets the northern wall of the Alborz Mountains and turns the hillsides into something almost tropical. This is the Hykarian forest, a stretch of woodland so ancient that scientists believe some of its trees are descended from forests that covered much of the northern hemisphere before the last ice age reshaped the planet. Ferns grow waist-high beneath a canopy of oak and beech. Mist clings to the hollows well into the afternoon. Brown bears move through this undergrowth with a heaviness that seems to shake the ground itself. Foraging for roots and fallen fruit in a landscape utterly unlike the arid mountains further south. Persian leopards live here too, in far greater numbers than in the dry Zagros, hunting wild boar through forests so dense that a leopard can vanish behind a single tree trunk.
It is strange to think that this damp green world and the salt flats of the Lut Desert belong to the same nation. Separated by only a few hundred miles, yet as different from one another as a rainforest is from the surface of the moon. But return to the mountains and to the people whose lives beat in time with the seasons, and the true heart of this story reveals itself once more. By late autumn, the highland pastures begin to fade. Grass that fed the flocks all summer turns brittle and pale. The nights grow sharp with cold, and the first geese begin flying south overhead, an old and reliable signal that it is time to move again. Families take apart the tents they only recently rebuilt. The whole cycle reverses. Down out of the mountains, back toward the warm lowlands, following paths worn into the earth by centuries of feet and hooves before them. Some of these families now number in the low thousands rather than the tens of thousands who once made this same journey. Roads and settled life have drawn many away from the migration, and the number of true nomadic households shrinks a little more with each passing decade. And yet, even now, every spring and every autumn, smoke still rises from mountain camps where it has risen for longer than written history can trace. Sheep still cross rivers on the backs of families who trust the water because their parents trusted it before them, and their parents before that. There is no guarantee this way of life continues forever. Grazing land is shrinking. Climate patterns are shifting the timing of the rains the whole migration depends upon. Younger generations are drawn toward the fixed comforts of towns and cities, and who could blame them for wanting a life that does not demand crossing an icy river twice a year with a newborn lamb held against their chest? But for now, in this one corner of the world, the old rhythm holds. A shepherd still stands on a ridge at dusk, counting his flock against a sky turning the color of embers, checking that every lamb born that spring has survived to make the journey. a leopard still moves unseen through oak scrub half a mile away, indifferent to borders, indifferent to nations, following only the deer and the wild goats that have always fed it. And somewhere below, in a valley about to empty out for another season, a woman ties the last knot in a carpet that will outlive her, its pattern known only to her hands and to the daughter now watching beside her, learning it thread by thread. The mountains do not care whether anyone is watching. They have stood through every migration, every winter, every leopard born and every leopard lost. But for as long as there are families willing to load their whole lives on the back of a mule and walk into them once more, the story of these mountains and of the people who still call two homes their own continues exactly as it always has. Quietly, faithfully, season after season after season.
If you like this video, click here or here for more videos like these.